Welcome back to S&S Grills. I'm Russ Jones from the YouTube channel Smoky Ribs Barbecue. Today I'm going to show you how to do a pork sandwich without using pork butt. Pork butts can take up to 12 hours, sometime more, really depending on the weight and the size of the pork butt. What I'm using instead is the rib half section of a pork loin. Here it is here. They typically have a fat cap, more fat cap, and they have more serrations of fat that run in between them. So that's what I'm going with, and I'll show you later exactly what temps to bring this up to for best results for some really good juicy meat. I will be using a pork rub from Amazing Ribs. This is Meathead's rub. He also has a red meat, a beef, and he has a poultry, also has a Kansas City barbecue sauce. So go over there and check them out. They're available on the S&S Grills website. We're gonna get started with this right after this. So let's get started by applying this rub. I'm not using a binder at all. There's a lot of moisture on the surface of this meat. You can use a binder if you prefer. And I am going to put a generous coat because this is a pretty thick piece of meat here that we're dealing with. All right, so this side's looking pretty good. I'm going to flip this over to the other side and my sides and ends. And from here, we're going to take it outside. And I'm going to show you how I set up the slow and sear kettle for this cook. Let me show you my configuration real quick. I have filled my slow and sear almost all the way up with these charcoal briquettes. I left a little opening here. That's where I'm getting ready to pour some hot lit charcoal briquettes, around 12, 14 of them. I've got my dripping griddle in place, and I really don't need this grate in here. I will remove that. Got my dripping griddle. That's just to catch any kind of fats or anything leaking down to help keep the pit clean. Go ahead and pour these in here. So this charcoal here will light this charcoal and begin heating this pit up. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some water into this slow and sear water reservoir. We're gonna add on our grate. Now I'm gonna put the lid on this, let this heat up, and I'm gonna brush this just prior to putting the meat on. This will clean up and brush easier after it heats up. All right, so let's put our lid on. You always wanna make sure that your vent is opposite from your fire. I've got this wide open. I just put my bottom vent wide open, and that's gonna allow as much air as it can get to go ahead and get this heating up. Now I'll bring you back here in a few minutes once we get it up to temp, and I'm shooting somewhere between 250 to 275, no more than 275. I'm showing 225 degrees on my thermometer, and I've already closed the smoke hole. It was wide open as well, didn't show that earlier, so I just closed that completely. I've also choked my top vent down to 1/4 of the way open and my bottom vent to about 1/3 of the way open, and I will monitor this temperature. If I need to crack those open some, I will, and we'll just judge that by what this thermometer here does. Now what I want to do now is go ahead and open this up. We're going to add some smoke wood here, here, and here. I like to get most of my smoke kind of early on. All right, our grates are good and hot, so I want to go ahead and brush off any kind of residue that you see there. Just take our pork loin, lay it right here on the indirect side, 2-zone cooking. Now I will be using the S&S 500, so utilizing this probe port, we can go ahead and get our probe through. We're going to stab it in around center ways, and I will verify all temperatures with the S&S 100 instant read once we get in that ballpark. I'm shooting for 140, 142. When I remove this, that's going to be a safe temperature for pork, but yet it's going to give you a very juicy and succulent pork. So let me go ahead and get the lid on, and we'll be watching these temperatures. All right, so while that's outdoors cooking, I'm going to show you my real easy, very quick coleslaw that will pair very well with this pork. First thing you need is 16 ounces of this. This is a mix of green cabbage, red cabbage, and carrot. We're just going to put that entire contents into a bowl of some sort. Simple enough. Into that, 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, just use your favorite. Now I'll add in 1/4 cup of sour cream. We got 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar going in. 1/4 cup of white sugar. 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed. Key ingredient right there. About 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. You can also salt to your own taste. You can taste this. If you need to add more, then certainly add more. About 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and there again, you can do that to taste also. Actually, any of these ingredients you can add to taste. I've got some golden raisins. Start off with 1/4 cup. Then I'm gonna add an additional 1/4 cup, which is a total of 1/2 cup. All right, I've got a Granny Smith apple. I just want to cut the bottom off to begin with. That way it can sit flat there on the table. And I'm just going to cut down this way, down this way, down this way, and down this way. Now all I want to do is really just cut these into thin shaves, more of a julienne of apple, nothing really big. Let's make these a little smaller where they're more bite size. So I'm just going to go through here and get the entire apple over into the slaw. Just thoroughly mix all of this in until it's well coated. Pop a lid on it, put it in the fridge. It'll be ready when the pork is ready. I don't know if I said it earlier, but I did go fat cap up on this, and the reason being is because your heat rolls over the dome of the kettle grill. I wanted to protect this side of the meat. And I've hit 142 internal. What I want to do now is put like a 1-minute sear on each side just to finish it off. And then from there, we're going to pull it off, rest it, and I'll see you inside to do the trimming and building of this sandwich. Let's go ahead and sear this. Just a little bit. I always like a little bit of char on anything. That char adds just a little bit of added flavor is what I think. That's what I like. If you don't want to sear it, you certainly don't have to. At 142, it'll reach that 145 minimum for pork just through carryover heat. Been resting around 10 minutes. Smells incredible. Let's cut into it and see how we done. I'm gonna cut right down the middle here. Juice everywhere. Now the trick to this is to cut it super, super thin. If you happen to have a meat slicer, that would definitely be the way to go. But if you got a good sharp knife, you can pull off the same thing. So after slicing these, I took all the slices on top of each other and cut them in half to where I've got half pieces just like that. And we just want to start by piling these on. I personally want a really nice fat pork sandwich. That is going to be a mouthful. Let's just go crazy here for a minute. A little bit more. One more. We're almost there. There we go. I'm going to take some of the Meatheads Kansas City barbecue sauce, and we're just going to drizzle this across the top. Now you could eat it just like that. I'm one of those guys that love the coleslaw added on top of the pork. The raisins, the apples, and just the overall coleslaw pair so well with pork. You could do this on this sandwich, or if you did use pulled pork, same thing. Great coleslaw recipe. I don't like to go crazy with it. Just enough to where I know it's there with some crunch. There we go. Put a cap on it, clean up around this sandwich. We're getting ready to do a taste. Look at that beast. My goodness. Oh, this is so good. All right, we got to go for round two here real quick. That truly is a really good way. I mean, this thing didn't even go 3 hours. We thought it would take around 3 hours. About 2.5 hours is what it finished off at. And it's absolutely worth giving this a shot. You're not gonna spend 12 hours trying to make it. And I'm dead serious. I think I actually like it more. It's super tender, super juicy. It's just delicious. Porkalicious, fantastic. I'm Russ Jones with S&S Grills. And remember, 2 zones are better than 1.